Good evening. Good evening, everybody. And actually, I don't know if this is going to be an evening broadcast or a morning broadcast. But this is what we have decided is we're going to try our hand at podcasting. And I think that my friend Crystal has come up with a great name for our podcast. I hope that is something that you can remember. We're going to call it Backward Podcast. Backward things. It's not going to be limited to this conversation, but you'll catch the drift as we go along. We're hoping that we can bring in local people, leaders in the church, leaders in our community, leaders in our state, and also do Bible teachings on this podcast. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. It's in 3 services a week. You just cannot cover all of the things that need to be covered um, out of the Word of God. I have pages of thoughts that have not reached the pulpit. And so we looked that this could be a way or a means that we could get this out to you, different subjects, pertinent subjects. And we're still in, of course, the thought process of how to do this and how long each of these podcasts should last and how often they should be broadcast. We'll figure all that out. But today, just maybe because I'm comfortable talking about this subject a bit, and it's because it's fresh on my mind and because it's so very, very important. We had this past Saturday, I don't remember the date, I guess it was about the 3rd of November, maybe. We had what we called Unbreakable Marriage Conference, our first Unbreakable Marriage Conference. It was so very good, so very good. And I took a lot of notes in that. It just highlighted a lot of shortcomings and some positive things that we have going in our relationship. And there was a thought that came out of that I want to share with you today, and I think it's important. I want to read you a scripture to start as a thought. It's in Luke chapter 6, and I'm going to read verse 45. How about that? Luke 6, verse 45. It says, "A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks." So as I was sitting listening to the pastor combination of Grigsby's from Houston, a thought came to my mind, and that's what I will focus on today. It is the conversations that I have had in my life about my wife, and we're gonna broaden that in a bit. But I'll start with her, and she's gonna probably be so mad about this, but she's been mad before. No, I'm just picking. This is a conversation that I'm having behind her back that she don't know I'm having yet, by the way. So conversations that we have behind people that we're in relationships with when they're not present. How important is the conversations we have about people that we're in relationship with when they're not present? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they wholesome? Do they edify them? Do they pick them up? Or do we take advantage of the situations when they're not present, and we really do some damage to them when they're not there? I guess I'll say this first. I was so blessed by having a good mother and a good father. My mom and dad just never talked about each other to anybody. I never heard one person outside of my house, not even my brothers and sisters, say they heard my mama or my daddy say something bad about the other one. Period. They just didn't do that. They didn't go to the neighbors. They didn't go to their friends and say, "Well, let me tell you what Johnny May done," or "Let me tell you what that Jonas did." They didn't do that. Everything that I ever heard my father or my mother say about the other, publicly or privately, in earshot of me or in any conversation that come back to me, was always good. It was always good. They always talked well about each other. And so when they talked about each other behind each other's back, it was good. And so I guess they never told me that. They never said, "Greg, when you get married, don't talk about your problems with other people. Don't talk about whoever it is that you marry. Uh, don't go to your friends and tell them all the things that she does wrong." They didn't say that, but they modeled that in front of me. And then um, I guess it just caught, because after I got married, I can tell you, um, I did not want to hear people talk bad about my wife, and me not wanting them to talk bad about my wife, I didn't want to talk bad about my wife either. And so I would go to work, and I worked in a place that had a lot of men. There was a few women there, but there was a lot of men. And man, we sat around, and the next thing you know, I'd have a husband sitting at a table, not directly talking to me, but just talking in general to a table full of people. And maybe they say something horrible about their wife, or maybe they would say something not about their wife at all, but about how good looking or whatever about another woman that I know would have hurt their wife's feelings. And I thought, it's not me. I can't do that. And I'm grateful. That's not a brag. I'm grateful for that. And it's not, I can say that about my wife. I never heard my wife's mother or father talk bad about the other one to anybody either. And I guess one of the things I can be most grateful for in my relationship with Jane is that no one has ever come to me and said, "Greg, let me tell you what Jane has said about you," in a bad way. Everything she has said about me that I know about, that has returned to me, has been gracious and kind. It's just been more than I deserve, because above all people on the face of this planet, including my mother and my father, Jane knows me like no other knows me. Now, we do our best to live good, wholesome Christian lives publicly and privately. But there's things that we had rather everybody not know. I want people to know that my temper, I don't want that. I don't want that, or my frustrations. And I'm so grateful that I have a partner, my spouse, who does not tear me down publicly behind my back. She's always, always uplifting. Now, privately, when she and I have conversations, she will tell me, "This needs to improve." She will remind me of my duty as a Christian and my duty as a pastor, my duty as a father or as a husband, as a friend. But she does not do that, to my knowledge. And I have to say, she probably doesn't do it at all, because people love to talk, and it would have circled back to me for sure. Somebody would have told me. I'm thankful for that. I think the importance of having conversations away from our friends or whoever this may apply in your life to. Maybe you have friends, or maybe you have parents or children that you talk about when they're not there. And I want us to consider today the weight of what we say behind people's back. I've thought about this for a few days, and I thought, is it more important what I say when she's with me, or is it more important what I say when she's not with me? I don't know that I've really decided on an answer to that yet. Perhaps I have, and I'll give you this. People are a lot more likely to say what their true feelings are away when that person is not there than they are when that person is present. When we don't feel threatened or whatever, we might open up and say things that we shouldn't if it's in our heart. So let me say this. That scripture that I read to you in Luke chapter 6, verse 45, it says, out of the abundance of the heart, out of the treasure, out of the good of the heart, or out of the evil of the heart, it's what comes out of our mouth. And I guess the best way to prevent what I'm talking about in the idea on the negative side of this is do not let evil treasure. Let me rephrase that. How about not letting treasure that's evil be in your heart? How about, let's say it this way. Don't let evil become the treasure. Don't look for things to hold on to that's going to come out of your mouth in a place that it shouldn't come out. Deal with that with God. Go to God with that. Let God clean the heart so that what's in the heart is good and so that what comes out of your mouth is wholesome. Now, I know this seems like an old conversation that everybody should know. It's nothing new about this, but I cannot overstate the power of what I'm talking about. How many? I had a conversation with a friend today, and they told me that there was a certain circumstance come up that they needed a certain professional in their life. And so in seeking out that, they had a conversation with one of their friends, and they brought this certain professional up, and this person immediately said, no. And they gave reasons why. And it wasn't because this person wasn't good at what they'd done. It was for personal reasons about something that person had said. So my friend decided not to go to that person for the particular needs that they had in their life. Who knows? That may be exactly what they needed, but it was skewed by what was said behind this person's back. Now, if my friend would have got a good report and said, hey, you know what? That person is really good at what they do, or kept their mouth shut, let my friend form her own opinion, might have had a different outcome. But that's not what happened. So in that conference the other night, I was sitting on the pew and a strange thing happened in my mind. I remember the first important conversation that I had about my wife when she wasn't there. She wasn't even my wife when I had it. I don't know if my mother was like other mothers out there, but she never, ever really liked anyone that I dated. She just could not find. I don't know what it was like. I don't know why she was like that. She was just picky. And so I'd been dating Jane, and well, to be honest with you, a couple of months ago, I found out from a person that's in their 90s that my wife's mother said, I hope my wife don't marry that Willis. And look here, 40 years later, here we are, still going along. But nonetheless, something about mothers picking spouses for their children. And so I remember getting dressed on a Friday or Saturday night, walking through the house. My mother, I was putting my shirt on, and this is how vivid this was. This was probably in the summer of 1984. Just graduated, and I walked through. No, it was not. We started dating in the summer of 84. This was actually in December. This was actually New Year's Eve. Yes. And I walked through, and I walked through the house, and Mama said, where are you going, Greg? And I said, I got a date. And I wasn't going to say with who because I didn't want the argument. And I said, so she said, with who? She asked her. Then I said, I have a date with Jane. And she said, she gave me this big spiel. And I said, Mama, I love her, and I'm going to ask her to marry her if she will marry me. And it shocked me that that even come out of my mouth, because I had never said that out loud. I had never said I loved her, and I never said I wanted to marry her. And I found that it was out of the abundance of my heart. And then I considered what I said, and I said, that's the truth. I began to mull that over in my own heart. Yes, that's the truth. I feel that way. I love her, and I want to marry her. And then I felt really, really scared, fearful, because I said, oh Lord, I have these feelings for this person that I don't know if they have them for me, because I didn't know what conversation she was having that I didn't know about. I remember picking her up for that date. My mind serves me correctly. We actually got in a bad argument that evening. It wasn't long. I found myself standing on 6th Street. It was about midnight that night. And we were standing behind her mother's car, and we were talking. And I felt myself really emotional. And I said, I got to tell you something, Jane. I love you, and I want to marry you. And I wish I could remember what she said, but I can't, because I think all the blood flooded into my ears, and it wasn't nothing but the roaring of a sea, because I was 18 years old and terrified and didn't even really know what I was saying. I didn't know how deep the water was. But a conversation that I had behind her back manifested itself. And now I'm saying the same thing to her face. And it was from that abundance that I knew I meant what I was saying. I knew I meant that I loved her and that I wanted to marry her. I wonder what conversations we have had about people that we love behind their backs that have hurt our relationship. Because let me ask you something. Have you ever said something behind someone's back that you love, only to find out that the person you told this stuff to, that maybe have been mean or maybe even been truthful, but after you said it, you wished you wouldn't have said it, only to find out later that they repeated it and it come back and hurt the relationship that you're in? Maybe even ended a friendship. So the weight of the conversations we have when people are not present are so very important. I met a classmate. It was my 40-year class reunion just this past weekend. I met an old friend that I hadn't saw in 40 years. And of course, you know, we have changed some since being 18 and now being 58. But when I saw him, I immediately recognized him, and he ran to me, and it was such a gracious moment in my life. We grabbed each other, we hugged, and he said, I love you. And I said, I love you, man. And his wife was there. And he says to his wife, this is who I've been telling you about. And his wife immediately came to me and hugged me and embraced me because of the conversations that he had about me behind my back. And if he would not have shared behind my back his love for me, his trust for me, our friendship, our childhood friendship, she would have had no reason to hug, trust, or love me. And I remember him saying, when I introduced him to my wife, and my wife hugged him because we had shared that same conversations privately as well. He said to his wife, he said, hug her too, we're family. And you know how that formed It formed in conversations behind one another's back. Oh, how I love him. And I love his wife. And I've only spent 30 minutes with his wife. But it is because the bond that was formed by the words that was spoken when we weren't present with one another. Ladies and gentlemen, you can affect your household. No, let me rephrase that. You do affect your household by the conversations you're having when the other members of your family is not around. You affect your friendships by the conversations that you're having when other people are not around. It is so important that we remember this. I think that as I'm looking at some notes right here, is that I need to remember that my life needs the measure of grace that will be afforded to me by the people that I love. If in their heart, if in your heart, if in my heart, we have love, the way that we're supposed to have love, then from the abundance of that love, we're going to bring forth the fruit of that. So you remember the old saying that says, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. I think that very true publicly. Privately, we probably need to have conversations that sometimes are stern or tough. But as another friend of mine just told me today, the purpose of these conversations is to reconcile friendships and relationships. It's not to hurt one another. But if the treasure of your heart is evil, then you're going to use the information that you have or even conjure up stories that are not truth or half truth to extract revenge or to hurt or to make yourself feel better about yourself. I don't want that in me. I don't want that poison in me. And I surely don't want you, whoever you are, to think evil or bad about my wife or my children or my friends. I want you to form your own opinion by the relationship that you have with them. I don't want to set it up for failure before you ever have a chance to meet them. It's too important. Relationships are needed. And how we handle those relationships when those people are not present speak volumes about what's in our heart. Volumes of. Have you ever looked eagerly to meet someone that one of your friends knew that you didn't know, you had never met, but you wanted to meet them because you had heard so much good about them? On the other hand, have you ever tried to avoid someone that you didn't know because of all the bad that someone said about them? Of course, we all have. We've all had those moments in our lives where we were already tainted by a conversation that we had that we really didn't know that person. And sometimes we take information from people that we don't even need to give trust to, and it hurts relationships out there that may benefit us, but we have been hurt by conversations we've had when people weren't present. I want to encourage you today to be very mindful of the conversations that you are having when the person that you love, the spouse, the friend, whoever, is not present. For as much as it reveals about, as much as your conversation or my conversation reveals about them, it probably reveals more about what's in our heart. Good or evil? Good or evil? I love you. Thank you for your time. And I ask that you consider what kind of treasure you have in your heart. For out of its abundance, you're going to bring forth your words, and your words are going to affect your life and those that are listening to you. Thank you for your time, and God bless you. I'll see you soon when we get this worked out. Thank you, and have a great day.